Hi, welcome to Ani Prime Recap. Your parents sell you to a bizarre creature who takes you straight to the nether world to study in the demon school. We are in the anime. Welcome to Demon School, episodes 1, 2 and 3. Somewhere in the ocean, a fishing boat is going through an unpleasant situation. Iruma Suzuki is one of the crew members. At the age of 14, he is forced to work there because his parents were horrible people and refused to support him, leading the boy to make this tragic decision. With the terrible storm that was destroying that area, the fishes began to fall from the places where they were stored, creating a big mess. The young man tries to hold some, but in the middle of that chaos, time freezes over. The boy is shrouded by a frightening sensation. He is confronted by a mysterious figure who ties him up and puts a sold seal on him. After this, time flows again as if nothing had happened, but the boy simply disappears from the boat. A short time later, he finds himself floating through a dark and terrifying world. Wondering where he is, the unknown being replies that this is the nether world, home of the demons. The demonic creature reveals that it is called Sullivan and has kidnapped the boy because his own parents have sold his soul to the creature. Iruma is astonished to hear this, but then reconsiders, accepting that his parents would really do something like this. Even so, he is still frightened by the current situation, struggling endlessly, thinking of the various atrocities he would suffer at the creature's hands. But when he arrives at Sullivan's castle, he realizes that things are quite different from what he was thinking. He is placed on a throne and receives an unusual request from the devil, who asks him if he would like to be his grandson. It had always been his greatest dream, and he was constantly jealous of his friends who already had grandchildren. Iruma asks the old man if he really has the choice to decide whether or not to accept it. The creature replies that it does not intend to force the boy into anything and that only he had the power to choose. At this point, we understand that the protagonist is not a bad person, even being too kind in certain situations. He never says no to anyone. After, the demon tells him the 3 words that make him perform any kind of request. They are, help, please and, I beg you. With his habit of not denying anyone anything, the boy accepts the contract and ends up officially becoming Sullivan's grandson. He quickly gets a new room and a school uniform. His new grandfather tells him that because he had a traumatic childhood, he was never able to go to school, so Iruma should attend a demon school. He then pours a bottle of perfume on the boy, warning him that if he arrives at school smelling like a human, he will immediately be devoured. For this reason, the perfume will help him to no longer have the scent of humans. At the end of the conversation, Sullivan reveals to the boy that if he had not accepted his request, he would be devoured at his dinner. As he leaves his grandson's room, he tells him that he should go to sleep, because the next morning would be his admission ceremony in the new school. When he leaves the place, the demon is approached by his butler Opera, who questions him about his decision to adopt a human, since the old demon could have as his grandson any other demon in the world. However, his master replies that he will soon understand the reason for his choice. The next morning, the boy takes a picture with his grandfather at the school entrance so that they can keep this moment unforgettable. Sullivan then says goodbye to his new grandson, and Opera takes upon himself to take the boy to the entrance of the school, where the way to get there was through a long and haunting valley. Iruma heads for the auditorium, where the whole ceremony will take place. Meanwhile, several students are arriving at the place with their demonic wings. With all the students now present, the Babel's Demon School admission event begins. The beings from the nether world begin to sing the school hymn that reinforces the honor of being a demon and that the only function humans have for them is to serve only as food. At the end, a short speech by the school principal is announced. All the students admire him greatly and recognize him as the future king of demons. However, to the misfortune of Iruma, who was trying not to attract anyone's attention, he finds out that his new grandfather is the school principal himself. Sullivan takes the stage and announces to everyone that he has a new grandson and that he will be studying at that institution, showing the large crowd a photo he took with the boy on his first day at school. Now everyone knows that the newcomer is the grandson of the head of the school. After this statement, he leaves and the school instructors announce a short speech by the representative of the new students, being considered a genius and beloved by all. His name is Asmodeus. Iruma is happy about this because now all attention is being focused on this student. However, as Asmodeus approaches the stage to make his presentation, the instructors announce that there has been a mistake and that he would no longer be participating in the ceremony. It is announced that the director's grandson would be the new head of speech. The boy begins to shiver upon hearing this news as he walks to the stage. When he arrives on the scene, he realizes that it was all set up by his own grandfather. Not knowing what to say, the boy looks at a letter that was written by Sullivan, telling his grandson to read exactly the words that were written there. The protagonist begins to recite the speech to the students without understanding what he was saying. After all, it was the language of demons. But as he begins to utter those words, Everyone is astonished and with an expression of fear, and when he closes his speech he is applauded and praised by the whole crowd. One of the instructors tells him that it was very dangerous and amazing at the same time. When questioning the professor about what he had just read, the demon replies that it was a powerful spell that, if by any chance misread, would result in the reader's own body exploding. Iruma is shocked by this, and then asks what the purpose of this magic is, and is disappointed to find out that it is a power just to not trip for the rest of the day. When he was finally coming down from the stage, the boy is surprised by Asmodeus Alice, a powerful student, master of using fire spells. The boy challenges the rookie to a duel for stealing all the spotlight, and again Iruma has the attention of all the students in the school. The prodigy student conjures several fireballs toward the protagonist, causing numerous explosions. However, surprisingly the boy manages to dodge all the powerful attacks for 20 minutes. It is at this point that we learn that the reason he had this supreme ability to dodge was because he was never lucky. After going through hell at the hands of his parents, he became a master at dodging anything that was dangerous, scary or painful. His skill points may be 0, but his defense is infinite. This technique is called overwhelming crises evasion capability. Asmodeus is annoyed to realize that his magic is not working, so he decides to use his martial arts. With this, he conjures a sword of fire and advances toward the boy, who apologizes throughout the whole time. However, as he strikes his blow, Iruma uses his opponent's strength to stop his own attack, this being one of his special techniques. As he does so, an explosion occurs and incredibly the protagonist applies a German suplex on his opponent, leaving everyone there thrilled with the end of the duel. Once in the principal's office, the boy is terrified by all the events. His grandfather is proud of his incredible achievements on the first day of school. Asmodeus enters the scene and bows in front of Iruma, telling him that he is at his disposal. Asmodeus claims that in a duel, the loser ends up becoming the winner's servant, so he will now be his subordinate and help him make all the students in the school his loyal servants. The next morning, Iruma wakes up frightened after a terrible nightmare where he was sold as a child by his parents to the Demon King. But upon waking he realizes that his reality was not so far from his nightmares. His grandfather tells him that it is his first day of school. After all, the previous day only the admission ceremony took place, and from this moment on the boy would have to start attending classes. Iruma is afraid of this because he is still not used to this crazy school and tries to tell Sullivan that he does not want to go to school, but he is unable to express his own opinion. He eats his breakfast and realizes that the food is as good as that of the human world. At the end, the demon shows his grandson the amazing school supplies he has bought for him, including even an Hellraiser clock, to wake him up every morning. As he leaves home for his school, the boy is confronted by the horde of students flying towards the school. Iruma tries his best not to attract anyone's attention, but when he arrives at the place he meets Asmodeus, who is happy to see him, telling the boy that he has been waiting for 6 hours until he arrives at the institution, and tells him that he can call him Az. So the two leave on their way to their classrooms. The protagonist is part of the same group as his new servant. Az explains to the newcomer that the school divides the 163 students into several groups and that on that particular day they were going to have the ritual invocation of familiars. It was an old tradition at Babel's, where students summon a magical beast and make it their subordinate. The student's ranking will be determined by the beast he can summon. When they arrive at the family hall, they will be evaluated by Professor Nibirios Kaolego, who is also a school counselor. He has a frightening presence and ends up distasting Iruma for his speech at the ceremony, wishing intensely that the boy would fail the ritual. He then shows everyone a panel that teaches them step by step how to perform the invocation, starting by drawing a circle of blood on a piece of parchment, then going into the magic circle with the parchment in hand, and immediately holding it over the candle so that it burns. With this, the released smoke will take a shape, and your familiar will appear. Irritated by that fluffy explanation, the teacher destroys the panel and orders the students to line up and immediately begin the ritual process. Students mostly succeed with their small invocations, most of them being small invoked familiars. It is Asmodeus' turn and he quickly makes a circle of blood on the paper, and as he burns it his summoning begins to take shape, being a gigantic white serpent with demonic wings and a flaming tail. Everyone is amazed at the boy's familiar. The counselor recognizes that one is a Gorgon snake and expected no less from his student, for he knew of his incredible lineage. The teacher asks Iruma to be the next to perform the ritual, and as usual, the boy ends up attracting the attention of everyone in the place. He deduces that he is only a human and has no power. In this way, he will not succeed in summoning anything, and so he will be expelled from the school, returning once and for all to the human world. As he performs the steps of the ritual, he ends up releasing an absurd power from his invocation. When the smoke subsides, everyone is in shock because the newcomer ended up invoking the teacher. After all, Nibirios gave all the students his own seal to prevent cheating. And since Iruma is a human and not a demon, he ended up performing a demonic invocation. However, the teacher was with only part of his body in the ritual circle. Angry, he asks the boy to push him through, otherwise his body will break in two. The protagonist obeys and once and for all concludes the invocation, transforming the professor into his servant, who at that moment became a small demon bird that could barely fly. Iruma wins the admiration of all the students for his amazing achievement. Nibirios is enraged by that situation and in his demonic form tries to attack the boy, but is quickly struck by a red lightning. After all, family members must obey their masters. After all the mess, the two go to the principal's office. The old man explains to them that it is not possible to cancel the pact, and also warns them that this ritual binds them for a year, and that if they try to undo it in any way, they will end up dead. When Professor Nibirios heard this, he decided to spend the rest of the day moping in his bed. Iruma went back to his school routine, where at this moment he was going to get his books to learn various subjects such as the basics of being a demon, curses and pharmacy. Wherever the boy went he drew glances in his direction, and was quickly known by everyone in the school, becoming practically a celebrity for not having a defined ranking and for making a servant teacher. As he and Asmodeus pass through the hallway, they end up running into a demon girl who comes rolling out of her room knocking over several stacked boxes. After conducting a strike, she introduces herself as Clara, a very eccentric and completely extroverted girl. His friend tells him that this girl is called Clara Valak, a student who is famous for being very strange, and because of this, she doesn't have any friends. A teacher who was passing by notices the commotion of the students, ties the three of them up, and sends them to the schoolyard. When they arrive at the place, they realize how strange the girl is by asking to play with the two of them with several of her very dreadful toys and some rather disturbing games. She then asks Iruma to imitate some things. Clara uses the word, please, and the protagonist agrees to do everything that is asked, imitating a tree, a very strong wind, and a demon dog. And so, the three of them spend most of the day playing and running around the grounds of the school. And finally, after 2 hours of non-stop running, Asmodeus and his friend fall breathless on the grass. The girl, realizing this, reaches into one of her pockets and pulls out a bottle of water and a snack for her new friends to eat. When asked what it was, she replies that it was a specialty of her family, being able to take anything she has ever seen at least once, straight out of her pocket. Iruma realizes that some students take advantage of Clara's ability, asking her several times for drinks and various kinds of food, and with her innocence she ends up handing over everything the others ask for. The next morning, the protagonist is awakened by his new Hellraiser clock and immediately goes to the school. His new friend was walking through the halls when she overheard a conversation from some colleagues she had helped before, saying that the newcomer was only taking advantage of her ability and that was the only reason he kept talking to Clara. The girl is disappointed to hear this and leaves without anyone noticing her presence. Iruma was in the courtyard when he is surprised by the girl who knocks him down from behind. She asks if the boy would like to play one more time, but he promptly refuses. Clara tries to convince him, but she doesn't succeed at all. After this, she falls into tears saying that he is like all the others who only accept to play with her because of her ability. Iruma denies it and tells her that she doesn't need to conjure up any drink or food for him because he would agree to play several times with his friend, because he simply likes the person she is. Hearing this, the girl is embarrassed, but begins to spin with such excitement. The same group of students who were taking advantage of her power arrive on the scene and ask for more drinks. As usual, the girl accepts. But this time, she conjures up a soda machine on the boy, telling him he must buy it with his own money. Asmodeus ends up teaching a lesson to the group that was taking advantage of Clara, and again the trio of classmates ends that day playing on the outskirts of the school. The next morning, Iruma's two new friends pick him up personally at his door. The boy is a little wary of this friendship, as he wonders if a human can really have demon friends. At school, they head for the cafeteria, where the boy discovers that the food is free, but it is according to his ranking. And since he doesn't have a ranking yet, he ends up with the last options on the menu. Asmodeus realizes that his friend doesn't have much idea what to eat, so he decides to make his plate while asking him to wait at the table. The protagonist is happy with this attitude. After all, he was making a true friendship for the first time. When they arrive at the table, his friend brings some options for Iruma to try, but then they are surprised by more than 50 different kinds of dishes thrown on their table. This was a prank played on the novice by the other students, but the boy took advantage of the situation and ate everything in a few seconds. He then asked the chef for so much food that the man got tired of cooking and fainted. Clara was causing a stir at another stall that sold food. After all, she could just look at any food and reproduce it in her pocket. The store owner throws her out of the store, saying that this way he would have a colossal loss. With all the commotion going on, Professor Nibirios goes to the cafeteria to find out who was responsible for all the commotion. But when he gets there he runs into Iruma, becoming even more enraged. The advisor discovers that in fact, the cause of all the confusion was Clara, being a person he considered to be irritating, impetuous, and without regard for anything. He already hated her in every way. The girl then discovers that the teacher was her friend's familiar servant, and so she asks the boy to put a seal on his hand and raise it. Following this instruction, Iruma ends up invoking his teacher in the form of his familiar, and everyone in the place is again amazed by that invocation. The store owner realizes that they have taken a seal without paying and chases the three out of the cafeteria with his bamboo stick. Now lying on the school lawn, the trio talks about the possibility of being in the same class for the entire school year. Asmodeus informs them that the next day they will find out the names of the students in each class. Knowing this, the embarrassed protagonist asks the two students if they could become his friends, and they are confused by the question, answering that they don't know what a friend is. Iruma realizes that the demons don't know the concept of friendship, so he explains that it is someone you play with, eat with, and spend part of your time with. That said, Asmodeus and Clara accept his friendship, fighting among themselves to find out who will be friend number 1 and 2. At the school board, the principal and teachers finish the list of all classes. We then learn that Iruma and his two new friends are in the class of misfits, made specifically for problem students. So, what did you think of this anime? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like it and subscribe for more anime recaps. See you next time.